No man, Persian or Greek, no man threatens a messenger.
You bring the crowns and heads of conquered kings to my city steps? You insult my queen? You threaten my people with slavery and death? Oh, I've chosen my words carefully, Persian. Perhaps you should have done the same.
This is blasphemy. This is madness.
Madness? This is cheat codes! Alright, sorry. It's September 8th, everybody, 2016. Welcome to episode 111 of the Cheat Codes Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We're always glad to have you with us. The next hour is us drinking a few beers and going over our favorite bits from the past week in video game tech and pop culture news. My name is Joe Erskine. I am your host, and we're coming to you from a seaside ledge where a giant wall of bodies blocks the way, and also everyone's moving a really majestic slow motion. It's great. Today I'm here with Cheat Codes producer and editor, Mr. Joe Stelios Arroyo.
Hello, hello.
Frequent Cheat Codes guest and Bungie producer, Mr. Samir Delios Patel.
Hey, hey.
And we're excited to welcome Bungie designer, Mr. Evan Xerxes Nikolich.
Thank you for having me.
Did I pronounce that right?
Nikolich.
Nikolich.
Very close,
Hard
though.
consonant.
Almost
Okay.
got it. You didn't pronounce Xerxes right either, so that's...
Xerxes. No?
Yeah, sure.
Xerxes. No good? Okay, fine. We're moving on. Today on the show, we'll fight in the shade to sort out the following bits. We're going to talk about what it's like to work on a game that flops. We're also going to talk about making a game in a genre you hate. And Nintendo just shut down over 500 fan projects. So...
Normal stuff.
Yeah, it's great. For the lightning round, we'll buy our freedom with blood to discuss. Speaking of Nintendo, the Apple event yesterday brought a new sort of announcement that will finally bring Mario to the App Store. And let's wrap it all up with weird Japanese vending machines. Hanging sentence. Evan, thank you for being here, sir. Samir, you as well, but we know you well enough. We're going to talk to Evan for a minute. Thank you for being here, man. We're excited you're here. Tell us what you can about what you're doing over at Bungie, maybe what your day-to-day looks like, because a lot of the listenership likes to know about devs and what they do, and maybe how things are progressing on Rise of Iron and or Destiny 2.
Well, Destiny 2, I would say no comment. As whatever they say in the shareholder meetings is what you know.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But Rise of Iron is in the bag. It's shipping the 20th, so less than 2 weeks. And I'm actually really excited about that project. This is the first Destiny project I did not work on directly.
Really?
I have only play tested it, so I'm really excited to play it as a
gamer.
As a gamer person.
Yeah, as a fan, yeah.
Instead of knowing the ins and outs. So prior to that, I did Destiny 1, Taken King, House of Wolves, all that stuff. I did mission design work. Now my day is sending email a lot as I'm in a leadership role. So I talk to a lot of people, give feedback. That's what I spend most of my time doing. And talking to Samir, who sits right across from me.
Yo, what up?
Fair enough. How's that working out for you?
I enjoy it. It's good. I'm still working on other Destiny related projects, but we're in early phases, and so it's a lot of paper design, paper documentation, and things.
Okay.
So a lot of concepting. It's the fun part of game development, not the
when sky's the limit kind of thing before budgets and everything else get
reality sets in, and you have to be like, well, that feature's just not going to happen. Sorry.
Right. This is the elementary school section where they ask you if you could be anything you want to be in this world. What would you do?
Do you guys get to use finger paints when you paper prototype? Or?
No.
That's called concepting.
We
Evan's a
apologize
designer.
to all the artists out there.
It includes a dose of mushrooms before you get started.
Yeah.
Good things happen.
Evan, how long have you been at Bungie?
I've been at Bungie for almost 4.5 years now, and I've been making games for over a decade. So
Where were you before Bungie?
I was at a small studio in Boston called Demiurge Studios, and I was there for almost 6 years, just short of 6 years before I left. And before that, I worked at SolidWorks, and then I worked at my first game job was EA, where I worked on Madden 2005.
Back when Madden was Madden.
Still mad.
Is it no longer Madden?
I don't know. The announcers are different now. It's hard.
Oh.
It's hard to
Change hurts.
reconcile.
And the thing
I'm an
about
old
Madden,
man, dude. Come on.
every Madden they introduce a new mechanic and leave all the old ones. So if you don't follow from the beginning, the barrier of entry of the latest Madden,
I feel like it's a turn-based strategy game now.
It's so hard.
Not football. Regardless, where did you end up going to school prior?
I went to Villanova University.
Nova,
Yeah,
right
we're
on.
national champions.
Are you from the East Coast originally?
I am from Boston. Born and raised.
Oh no,
motherfuckers.
Joe and
Best
Evan are
friends.
going to get along.
All right. I'm from the Midwest originally, but I spent most of my life on the East Coast.
Oh, okay.
Like
Okay.
New York upstate and then New York City. So
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not wearing my hat. Mets. Anyway, Mets. Anyway, go Mets. Woo!
But the listener doesn't know that. You could have played it off.
I know, right? And then I became too self-aware, and it's all a shit.
Now
show
you just look like a moron. Sorry, sound like
more.
Yeah, luckily no one can see you.
Right. Very quickly, let's talk about what we're washing the episode down with. When we're not fighting a losing battle against the Persian hordes or watching our own children duke it out in a sandbox, we're sitting here talking about video games. To lubricate this process, we enjoy a few beers while doing so. So as slaves to routine, we're enjoying a few IPAs from the folks at Hopworks Urban Brewing. We call it Hub. So do they. It's from Portland.
But you didn't.
It's delicious.
Yeah, it's fun.
Rarely do I do the things that I say. Just say what I do.
What's the IPA? It's the Hopworks IPA?
It's just their flagship
flagship
IPA.
yeah, okay.
It's one of my favorites. It's fantastic.
I do like that one.
Here, why don't you just back yourself up with that if you haven't had one? All right, you should. I promise me.
Like, don't even finish the first one. Just hold one in each hand. Double fisted.
Double fisted.
Yeah. Number one.
Yeah, let's do it. We talk a lot on the show about the various vagaries of game development, and while I'd like to think we don't complain too much, it's worth helping people. It's especially fans, and it's real fucking hard to understand and kind of explain and contextualize how this all works, what it takes. Right? I feel like there's a giant disparity, and this is probably a whole other can of worms between what the fan sees and what people see. But what's been really cool is that there was this Vice article recently that talked very specifically about what it's like to work on a game for a very long time and have that game do very little, both commercially and critically. What happens when you make something? It comes out, and is it critically and commercially a flop? What does that feel like? Do you know ahead of time? Do you not? It's a dangerous kind of process, but one that comes across almost any creative endeavor, I think. Is it worse when you know ahead of time that it won't play out well? I'm kind of curious. As the reigning master of experience here, as we're all working our first game dev jobs, I'm curious what you have to say about that, because I haven't worked long enough in the industry to have a flop or a success, so I'm not sure, but I have a feeling that I might imagine how it might go. I have enough worldly experience to understand what it's like to put a lot of energy and attention into something to have it do nothing.
To fail?
If you want to call it that, sure. But please.
Yeah, I saw this topic, and I have a lot of experience in this. I've worked on several games that have flopped, some commercially, some critically. The first one, it's rough for sure, but I mean, I think I read this article, like there's so much experience gained from working on something that doesn't succeed. Like success can kind of mask the mistakes you're making sometimes, and so you learn a lot along the way. So I've worked on several flops. I've worked on Alien Colonial Marines.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
That was both critical and commercial flop. But I also worked on a game I thought that wasn't too bad. I worked on a few the Green Day Rock Band, which was a good Rock Band game. But
was that like a Beatles Rock Band thing?
Kind of thing, yeah.
Okay.
But because it was,
did that ever ship?
It did. It did ship. But because at the time the market had been so played out commercially, just did not sell.
Right.
And I mean, it's a crappy feeling to have spent so much time on something that maybe doesn't succeed, but at the same time you have to walk away and like learn from your battle scars, I guess is the best way to put it.
Well, that's fair. Is it more about the journey than the destination kind of thing?
Yeah, kind of thing. And I mean, at the same time also it's like learning what not to do.
Sure.
So that's the biggest thing. And before I came to Bungie, I never really worked on a game I worked on Madden, but I was a test at that level, and so that game was successful and had a strong pedigree. But like working on Destiny, I learned a lot of lessons from people who've been very successful working on Halo, and from other studios as well. Like I worked with the guy next to me that worked on the God of War franchise, and he's very talented. And so you learn from people's other prior experiences how to build good content. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely very trying. I mean, there was points in my career early on was like, am I even cut out for this? Like, I'm just not getting the success that I wanted.
We should talk after the show.
Classic imposter syndrome. It's like everyone in the game industry, I feel like, has that same story at some point where once you first delve into it,
I feel like once everybody ripped off the Band-Aid of imposter syndrome, and now we all have it all of a sudden. You know what I mean? It's a weird... not to say that it doesn't exist. Yeah, but
it's been made okay to feel like you're a fraud.
That's fine.
But kind of speaking to that topic, and I'm sure Evan can probably speak to this with more detail, like I'd imagine with a project like Rock Band Green Day, no dev thought it was going to fail at the time, right? Like the whole dev team was probably super passionate about what they were working on. And so like that's a side you don't really think about when something flops, is, well, did they think it was bad while they were working on it? And, you know, chances are probably good. No, they were probably all really excited and really into the project. I'm sure there's exceptions to that statement, but like that's probably the part that hits people hard and you don't hear about it. It's, I put all my blood, sweat, and tears into this, and then it just didn't go well, and it sucks because you feel like it was a good thing that you put a lot of time into, and then you don't get the feedback that you were expecting.
Yeah, I mean, I think like with the Rock Band title, like I thought that was a very polished product we put together, and I was proud of the work we put together. But commercially, like just the market was waning and not there. So commercial flops, I think having a critical darling but commercial flop, like I think that's a easier pill to swallow versus like making something that's like bad. Like I've worked on a game where it's like, okay, this is not going well, and this is not looking like it's going to improve, and you're trying to salvage it. And it was like this kind of desperate scramble, but you come to a point where you're like, well, I can't control this huge AAA product. I'm just going to do the best I can with
I'm a cog in the wheel, so to speak.
Yeah. So like, you know, I read reviews of like Colonial Marines, which is not a good game, and I knew it wasn't going to be a good game, but like I worked on the multiplayer and people were like, I really enjoyed the escape mode of Aliens, like that one map, and I was like, all right, I did my job.
Oh, that's cool. I'm curious, since you've had an experience in both kind of avenues, where it kind of was not a success but it felt like it would be, and then one where you kind of had the feeling prior to ship. Which one's, I won't say which one's worse, let's say which one's better?
I think the one where you can at least say you're proud of your work, that's the one where like you can say I put together a good package, and you know you failed commercially. That's kind of market forces at play. I think you learn that from time. Like I was not in the time at a position to like, well, as a business, should we be licensing Green Day to make more Rock Band? Mm-hmm. Like I wasn't in that position. Versus like a game that's just struggling and like gone through multiple iterations and not finding its footing. That's just very frustrating. And then you can't tell, is it because of you? Is it because of outside forces? Is it like you're just struggling to put it together? And when it's not coming together and you're grasping at straws, that's where it gets incredibly frustrating.
I imagine that's like the vortex of despair, right?
The vortex of despair.
Once you get stuck in there, it's that all the way to the end. Hooray.
It's an American standard all the way down.
Yeah. And it helps too though. It's like working on Destiny. Like Destiny was not at several points not a very good game, but like working with people who are very experienced, like, okay, yeah, this is not working, but I think I can see a way out. Like, we're going to try this. And they maintain that calm through the storm. And that's something I've definitely learned working at Bungie, just working with very veteran and very senior people.
Experience counts, right?
Experience counts dividends, and like learning not to freak out. Plus, we're also in the very fortunate position at Bungie where we have a pretty big cushion. We have time to iterate and work and make something better. Like a lot of like small studios can't afford that time to iterate.
Resources go a long way. Time, money, talent, all of it.
Oh yeah, like it's so funny when you read like I think like a good example like Blizzard with Overwatch, they're super successful, and we're like, yeah, it would be great if we operate like Blizzard. Like a lot of studios can't do that; they don't have those resources.
Only Blizzard operates like Blizzard, as far as I can tell, anyway. But yes, I think Bungie's on a certain echelon that is either approaching or at least like not far away from that kind of production scale. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pretty soon you'll be like Valve, and you don't even have to make games.
Yes.
just sell them
unless you want to. You're just like, hey guy who doesn't wear shoes at work, do you want to make
roll your desk today? Over here and let's talk about making a game. Yeah, it's fine.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is games take a lot of time and iteration to get good. Like they spend a lot of time being really bad for a long time, and
5% of the time they're probably pretty bad.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't see that. The end consumer doesn't see that, and nor should they see that. But it takes a lot of time and experimentation.
So not to left turn it, but I kind of want to, because I alluded to this a little bit like in the introduction to this topic about how like the giant disparity between fans that play a lot of games and are very passionate about certain titles and the people that make them, right? And how little, I'm not saying this applies to everyone, but most people that play games have very little idea how they're actually made and what goes into that process. And I feel like you're kind of like speaking to that a little bit right now. And I feel like there's this weird argument happening right now about how to close that gap, whether or not we should. And if it's worth it in the long run to like make people understand what makes the game. When people start bitching less, is it just like as developers getting tired of the fact that people are bitching with very little context to bitch? Or
this reminds me of an example, like a real hard example, is the Call of Duty series, where they're dividing it out between multiple studios so that each game staggers
to maintain a yearly release schedule.
So there's a yearly release schedule. Where what does a yearly release schedule feel like to the consumer? They feel like a game like Call of Duty can be made in a year. That's the way it feels to them, and that's like making it even worse in terms of their ability to understand what it takes to make.
I don't want to treat the consumer like an idiot by any stretch, but I feel like at some point, some customers, maybe even the younger ones, let's say, like assume that there's a small, like 20, 30-man team just making every Call of Duty game. You know what I mean? So, and therefore they have expectations that are not well-founded because that gap exists between what consumers and players know that maybe don't have that connection to development and what the developers know, and be like, you know, I'm sure that those guys love their jobs, but I'm sure that there are times when they're probably banging their heads against the wall, as we all do. And closing that gap, like increasing the amount of understanding, guys. Come on, it's like I don't want to call it a protest, but it's like a let's get the word out, man.
I actually kind of disagree with that.
Okay.
So
great.
Moving on.
Number 2.
No. And the reason I say that is like I don't feel like the person buying my game should have to like there should be no obligation for them to know what me and my team went through to deliver that game to them. I do feel like it would be valuable for them to understand process and things like that. And I think ultimately what I would be more happy with is if the consumer at the end of the day learned how to approach devs and talk in a more like, I wouldn't say mature, but like
knowledgeable,
civil.
Yeah. I don't know, but in a way in which they're more informed so that they can communicate to us clearly like what they do like, what they don't like, what they want to see change, right? Because we're making the game ultimately for them. They deserve to tear it apart as much as they want, especially because they're paying for it with their money.
Sure.
Right. At the same time, devs don't deserve to be completely dehumanized and called crap, you know, because they're upset with the product. But at the same time, like consumers shouldn't have to know what goes into making a game, right? You know, when you go to a movie, you don't know how to make a movie, but you can criticize it, right? And how you criticize it is very important.
Sure, but I think people know way more about making movies than they do about making
right, but that's because they've been around for so long,
sure,
right? But
sure.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there was ever an initiative to teach people how to make movies.
No, I think movies actually went out of their way, especially like the post vaudeville kind of thing.
Oh,
to
right. Yeah, true.
Keep the magic alive. Like,
Yeah.
don't let them. You know, a magician never tells you how like they do their tricks.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think game devs are just kind of like, fuck that. Like everybody's making games now. You know what I mean? Like, what did they throw up at the Apple event yesterday? That demographic of like, or that stat where it's like 500,000 games on the iOS store, and it's kind of like, that's a problem. Yeah. You know what I mean? But that's because everybody's making games,
right?
And that's a good thing.
Yeah, as it becomes more accessible, people just naturally start to learn about it, and our industry is still young. Our consumers are maturing right along with the industry of devs itself, right? And as that goes on, I think it will just get better. And I do agree there is some onus on us as devs to educate, you know, our consumers in a good way, right? But at the end of the day, it's not their. I don't feel like it is their responsibility to actually get any better at it, right? It will naturally happen, but I don't feel like it's a responsibility.
I think if they want to have a positive result on the industry, then we all have to get better about it.
Right on.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we make products, the consumer products, and it comes down
It's a business,
to it's a business. And does the consumer enjoy it? Do they like it? Do they want to consume more of it? Like that's what it comes down to. So I mean, it's like I think it's like any product in the world. I mean, like the iPhone is an incredible piece of technology. Where people are like, you took away my headphone jack. I mean, like
we'll get to that. We're gonna get to that. Don't worry.
But it's I mean, like people don't appreciate the thousands of hours of R&D, and that's fine because at the end of the day, you spend money and you want to enjoy your experience, and it's not on us. Like if you want to become engaged in a conversation of critique, you should. I think it's on the onus of you to get more educated about it. But I totally fine with people hating on something. If people hate on Destiny, that's fine. People hate on whatever I work on, that's fine. They speak with their dollars, and so
and not to go ahead.
Well, I think you bring up a good point because I imagine that the people who already kind of hate a product, I don't think that any amount of knowledge is going to make them hate it less. I think it's just going to make them get more clever about how they hate it.
Yeah, and it's
they've made their decision.
Yeah, they've made their decision.
I find your hate very clever.
The only thing is, I would just say is like, at least if you try it, and if you don't like it, that's fine. But if you do like it, I'm so glad that we're able to make you happy.
Yeah,
it's the ultimate litmus test, right? At that point, I'd agree, and not for nothing, and not to kiss too much Bungie ass, but as a way to wrap this up. This has actually been one of the cool things about Destiny specifically is that how much you guys are listening to the player base and changing the game to reflect that
all day, every day.
I'm just saying, and I feel like if resources, money, blah 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 blah, but having a franchise like that and doing it that's a huge thing to do.
Absolutely. And I mean, back to like this thing, like, do you know it's going to be bad when it ships? Or like when we ship Destiny, like it's tough because you're so close to it. And you're like, well, this isn't the best thing I could maybe have done. Like, I know there's some things we can improve, but we put it out there, and I would still say I'm proud of the product we put out. But I definitely know there's areas we can improve, and thankfully we have the runway to improve that, and we even have the added benefit of like having a very vocal community nowadays that helps guide that conversation.
It's true. There we go. All right,
too.
While we're talking about hard development times and the fallout of critical and commercial failure, maybe we could ask another question. How do you make games in genres you hate? How do you motivate? How do you find purpose? One dev is trying to find out, and maybe it's a little lesson for all of us. Brian McRae at Phoenix Fire is the lead dev on a survival game called Osiris New Dawn. This guy hates survival games, which is awesome to me. The article reads more like a, hey, this is happening, so stay tuned sort of thing. But the question is tacitly asked in the headline, how do you make a game in a genre that you hate, right? As a professional, as everything else. I'm curious. Joe and I can actually speak to this to a certain degree, and we'll get to that in a moment. But again, Samir, first professional game job. Even at school, did you make a game in a genre that you hated?
Yes.
Talk to me. Tell me all about it.
So we made a top-down like arena brawler, dungeon crawler, roguelike thing.
I remember this game.
I am personally not a fan of roguelikes or, and this is going to sound really weird.
Procedural shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just not a fan of like procedurally generated things, and like it's hard to do procedural generation right. And
not Samir's Sky. You're welcome, everybody. Good night. Good night.
Anyways, and it was a game I was not a fan of. I didn't like it, but I still worked on it, and I still liked working on it, oddly enough. And for me, it was more about the team I was working with. Like I'm a person that just derives a lot of joy out of the people I work with. And if I really like the team I'm working with, I don't care what the hell I'm working on. Like, it's me and a bunch of my friends making cool shit together, and like that's just I mean, sorry to sound cheesy, that's magical to me, right?
As a fellow producer, I understand this feeling very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with Samir. Like, it very much comes down to the people you're working with and the team. I mean, like, unless I guess you're an indie going solo, I don't know why you work on a game in a genre you hate. I mean, you might want to work on your passion project, but as a team goes, yeah, people really make or break your job. Like, I worked on some projects, canceled projects that maybe I wasn't a huge fan of, but I still had fun with it, and I recognize that maybe I'm not the one who has the expert there, so I will work to educate myself, understand, but I'm very much leaning on others to help make a better product.
Yep. This reminds me of like what you had mentioned.
Tell the story, Joe. Tell it.
Well, okay, so if for any listener that doesn't know, there is a yearly game jam. I hope it's still going on.
The last time they did it, I think it was the time that we did it.
No, there was another one after that, I'm pretty sure. It's called Fuck This Jam, and I really hope it gets rebooted if it didn't. And literally that was the theme. The theme is to make a game in a genre you hate in a game jam fashion. And that ended up being one of the coolest experiences, because what was the one thing we said? We immediately knew. The three of us were like, what's the genre we hate? And
poetic
experience. So
right on.
Now, don't get me wrong. There are poetic experience games I actually genuinely loved.
Abzu, apparently.
But as a whole, it was more about a game in a genre I would hate to create a game in. And that, to me, was different than playing it, right? And so we made a game called ... Fish. And it was
sounds pretentious.
It was literally exactly. It was literally an explore. You explore as a fish, and it was it was really about exploring all the different ways that you could die as
Yes.
a fish in the. So you literally just float around, and then you get eaten by a shark, and then you get hooked by a.
So it was a
fisherman.
poetic 5 minutes to kill yourself.
Well,
You-
but there was
but you
actually
kept
like a few
respawning.
there was like between what 6 to 8 different ways
We
to
managed
die.
to pull out about like 8 different ways to die, and the fish you were in there was a school of fish with you, so you'd swim around, and every time you die, a new one from the school would become
Would, like, pop forward,
and
yeah.
you just keep going. You never really stop.
Yeah, it's seamless.
Yeah.
Seamless.
But see, you have this really big smile on your face
Yeah.
as you talk about it. You enjoy the process.
We're
Proud of that fucking shit. Absolutely.
That is the ultimate point. Was like we got done with it, and we were like, holy shit! What I think there's something to be learned by bringing people on board into a genre that they don't necessarily understand or like, because they might actually break some rules that people will end up appreciating later. You get a bunch of like RPG nerds together to make an RPG game, and they're going to be like, well, this is how it's done.
Yep.
And that's how they want to do it. Get a bunch of people who maybe like have never even played one, and you tell them a couple rules, and they'll take it to some crazy heights, and maybe even make something brand new and interesting out of it.
I think
I had a blast.
this speaks again to like working with people that you enjoy working with, and you could be like, I want to make the next best dirty diaper, and you're like, you know what? I don't really want to do that, but I enjoy working with you guys, so let's do that. You know what I mean? That sounds great.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Fair enough.
I think all of us disagree with you.
I'm just saying the idea of collaboration is often a motivator in itself, I guess is my point.
I agree with that.
And ultimately, I think even though we, made a game in a genre that we hated, we had a lot of fun kind of like being outside of our comfort zone. Because honestly, like sometimes when you're so far away from the things that you do know or consider yourself an expert about or whatever, like you actually have some like, I don't want to say innovative ideas, but you're not afraid to try weird shit, and you learn just as much from that as, say, being that guy who, like an RPG player who wants to make an RPG and like, oh, it's got to be this way, and I want it to be that way, and blah, 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 blah. Like, no, I'm going to make a poetic experience. So what did we do? Every time you died, it had a different quote. Like some
we went
stupid poetic
way
quote.
overboard with
like
that.
really, and then we like made it every one of the devs on the project, or even just friends of ours, like the ones who said that quote, even though they didn't say it. But it was like our little shout out to them. Like we just like did dumb shit. Like it was
Right.
just-
No, we did quote it, and we quoted ourselves. Like it was like Nikolich
man.
says. Like,
Right.
Yeah, it was super pretentious.
I need to dig this up and
Yeah.
play it.
don't trust a smile with sharp teeth.
Yeah,
like that kind of
basically.
shit. Like it was super. I think that was the shark death one.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it
That kind of thing. But yeah, it was stupid. But either way, like you do learn. Like ultimately, going outside of the comfort zone probably benefits you to some degree.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I would say I work on shooters exclusively now, but like prior to that, I worked on a rhythm game. I worked on 2D platformers, worked on mobile games, and it helps inform me as a developer, like the different genres and different ways to approach and tackle problems. I think it just makes you stronger. If I spent the last decade making shooters, I probably would have a very narrow view
About how that. Do you feel like even working on stuff like Green Day Rock Band, for instance, has informed any of your designs, even for like some stuff like Destiny? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. When I interviewed at Bungie, actually, like, what are you most proud of? I was like, I'm really proud of my rock band work, and they're like, that's not anything close to what we make. Can you explain yourself? And I was like, well, it really taught me a lot about composition, like learning about the rules of thirds and where people's eyes go and stuff like that. And that has made me such a stronger spatial designer from that work.
Oh, I
and
understand how you got the job. You sold. I want to hire you right now.
But yeah, I mean that stuff, and I worked with a really good artist in that project. He taught me all this compositional theory and whatnot. And everybody I talk to now that I teach about how to make spatial design, that's the stuff I hammer home. And some people tell me, "Oh, you're full of shit. Like rule of thirds doesn't matter." I'm like, no. Let's look at this space. The compositionally, it's sitting on different axes and on the different third lines. And like, yeah, you're moving constantly, but it's a huge thing. And that lesson of my job in Rock Band was making the music videos, so I scripted all that stuff.
Okay.
And so I took that forward into all my shooter work, and it paid dividends. Look where I am now, guys.
That's awesome.
That's
so great.
indeed. Look where you are now.
That totally brings us full circle back to the first topic too, about the idea of taking the experiences out of things that may not have actually been
about
a
learning,
success.
man. Learning.
Didn't mean you didn't learn anything in the process, and it's probably a big factor as to why you're successful now and with your spot at Bungie. So
it's nice to have people willing to teach too, like having like an occasion, like not necessarily a mentor, but a person who's willing to be like, I'm going to take a deep breath and not be pissed off at you. I'm going to show you how this should go. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. I appreciate that very much as well. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I try. I mean, it's tough to have that patience, and I try to do that now. But yeah, like just teaching, spending the time of like, okay, this isn't the best, but we're going to take a step back and we're going to talk about what we can do to improve.
Right. Like I'm going to critique the fuck out of you right now, and you're going to feel like a piece of shit. But here's how you get better.
no.
Oh yeah, I mean, like my first job out of school, I worked at SolidWorks, and I was an engineer at the time, and I had a guy, this guy I worked with, Kent, and he was like, "So this is really bad, but I'm going to teach you how to program now. Like all this stuff in school, like no, like this is how you actually do object-oriented programming." And I was like, oh, that was so, but that after that morning,
I understand pointers.
But after that morning meeting, I was like, oh my god, he's so angry with me. And he wasn't. He was just like, look, I'm going to help you.
He's like, before that, my favorite word was if. My second favorite word was else.
I want to say there was a point when I was working with Evan when I showed him something and he just looked at me and he says, "This is trash," and then he helped me fix it.
That's beautiful, though.
Working with a few, like a very large, like half the studio is kind of like rookies, and then the other half of the studio
Like
is
straight
like
up veterans.
hardcore
It's a
20-year
weird
veterans
def-
across the
yeah.
way.
No
And-
middle ground.
No.
And
Zero.
I know when I'm talking to a rookie, and I know when I'm talking to a veteran, because like at some point the eye roll happens. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh shit. You know what I mean? But I'm learning a lot, and I don't know. I feel like this happens quite a bit. I mean, you've been working with some of the guys that we're working with now, Joe, for a while, a couple
Yeah.
years now. For me, I'm like barely 6 months, and I'm kind of like, I want them to know that I'm very good at what I do.
Just start saying
But
stuff
I've
like
never done it
velocity
before.
and sprint planning.
Never done it before. At least on a professional level. But yeah, you know. So.
And I think the important thing is to admit that, like, I haven't done this before, and I'm willingness to learn.
Every day.
There you go.
I say that every day.
I mean,
This is part of the dirty diaper you were talking about.
Yes, absolutely.
This is a piece of shit. Put it in the diaper. Let's
That's
make
right.
a dirty diaper
Let's
together.
make a dirty diaper together. And we throw those dirty diapers out, and eventually they're potty trained. Right? Hey. No. Go
So
ahead.
you're still potty trained?
I mean, that was probably my biggest thing from being young to getting more experience, and was like letting go and learning. Like, I don't have all the answers, and there's people that can help me. This is critical. Like, I don't know your listener demographic, but if you're looking to get in games, like, stay open and stay humble and hungry. It's the most important thing.
Oh, yeah. Hungry is the key. Like, willing to show up every day and take the hits and have the successes and celebrate those successes, because they happen daily. It's fun. I don't know what it's like at Bungie, but small team, that shit is daily.
Well, I mean, Samir, he only knows success.
I didn't say it.
The guy's like the Trump of producers.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! You take that back.
I have the best words. All right. Let's not go
Best
down that
planning.
I'm gonna build a wall between
Best
us.
tasking.
And you're paying
And
for
I'm paying
it.
for it.
road. Number 3.
If you're making a Nintendo fan game, especially using one of their more valued and famous IPs, it's entirely possible you had it shut down recently. Nintendo shut down over 500 fan projects in a sweeping legal gesture that basically reminds everyone that the only people allowed to make Nintendo stuff is, well, Nintendo, frankly. They're legally totally allowed to do this, and perhaps there's a good reason. Maybe somebody was about to make $1 million zillion off the next great Metroid fan game. I don't know. But it makes a certain amount of sense, right? You protect your IP. You keep making money on it so that nobody else can. Because as soon as you give up that precedent, it's a fucking open season, right? Ultimately, it makes a certain amount of sense. But we've seen how beleaguered Nintendo has been recently. And we're going to get to their whole Apple thing in a minute. But let's try and leave that to the side.
You like keep teasing the fans about it.
Yeah, hey man, gotta keep them coming back. But we're gonna compartmentalize for a brief moment. And what I'm curious about is this a good move? Doing it all at once like this, yay or nay? Or do you do it like kind of like piecemeal across the board to kind of like shut down certain projects? When is it okay to like let it happen? We've seen it both ways, both in Hollywood and game development across multiple creative endeavors. I'm interested to see how you guys feel about this. We shit on Nintendo quite a bit on this show, but we also celebrate their successes just as frequently. is this the right move, especially going into a new console for them, especially with like their whole move into mobile, which again we'll talk about in a moment. But I want to know how you guys feel about it. Like, if you guys were going to sit down and be like, you know what, I fucking love Metroid. I want to make a Metroid game, and we probably can't, but maybe we should anyway. I don't know. Tell me how you guys feel about Nintendo doing something this sweeping and grandiose in a way to shut everybody down.
This is part and parcel with Nintendo. It's something they've been doing for a long time, and something they, I think we expect them to do at this point. It doesn't make a lot of people happy, but the problem is that no group as a whole has made any change in terms of consumers to like boycott them for shutting these kind of things down. Because they make highly addictive games and people love their IPs, and so when they shut down these projects, no one seems to give a shit. In terms of like their numbers are the same,
except for the 500 different teams that just got shut down. Like those people give a shit.
All right, so I guess I should have prefaced this by saying that this is really shitty, and I hate that it happened.
Okay,
but
that's a good qualifier.
Yeah, I should have. Yeah, but I'm just seeing it as more of the same. I feel like this is kind of this reoccurring theme on the show where like, what did Nintendo do again to this streamer or this this game company or these modders? It's just and it never changes their trajectory. So for me, it's kind of hard to weigh in again because I'm gonna repeat myself frequently about how I'm not a big Nintendo fanboy and it doesn't matter.
Isn't everyone kind of a Nintendo fanboy to some degree, though?
No.
Elaborate.
You never enjoyed a Zelda game? You never enjoyed a Mario game?
No, not really.
Pokemon?
I mean, I recognize them as good games for what they are, but I never had one growing up, right? So like, there's not that nostalgia.
You're one of the Sega kids. Okay,
I was a Sega kid.
I'm sorry, my family couldn't afford a SNES.
I'm teasing. I'm sorry too, but go ahead.
well, for me, I mean, the far more fascinating thing about this whole situation to me is more about the legal side of everything, like the legality of all of this, because there are some franchises that allow this to happen, and I'm going to preface this right now. A lot of what I'm about to say is pretty much ripped directly from a YouTube video. Can I say the channel name? And
why not?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a video that was put out by Game Theory recently about it was actually about this very topic of Nintendo shutting down fan games. And he brings up a good point of like, you guys have all heard of Five Nights at Freddy's and have played it or seen it, heard of it.
Sure.
There's a bunch of clones of Five Nights at Freddy's, right? Mm-hmm. And Scott Cawthorn, who was the creator, doesn't shut them down. He doesn't send out DMCAs and tell them to stop. He just lets them happen. He doesn't care, right? Even though you can clearly look at him and say, nope, that's a clone. Whereas like with Nintendo, the same thing is kind of happening with titles like Pokemon and Metroid, but Nintendo is sending out those letters, right? So it's like, where's the legality behind this? Like, what gives Nintendo that power to do it? And it ends up coming down to a lot of really weird cases. You should really watch that video by them, and it explains it really well, and I'm not even going to try to do it justice. But it comes down to the individual company and what they feel like is infringing upon their rights, and how it is outlined in like U.S. law or like international law or whatever country it's being taken to court in. So as far as like, is this a bad move by Nintendo? I think the way that they probably see this is that they're protecting their IPs, right? Like for them, they have this very like controlled environment, and like they have this very specific idea of what Mario represents and who he is and the symbols that he represents, right? And Nintendo wants to control that, and rightfully so. You don't want to see Mario running around shooting people and blood splattering everywhere. That's
unless it's a fireball.
But that's an image Nintendo doesn't want anybody to relate to Mario, probably. So if a fan game came out where you could do just that, they're going to shut it down. And for them, it's probably easier just from
as a blanket,
from a logistical standpoint, to just blanket have that policy of like just don't let fan games.
Right, there is no leeway whatsoever.
Yeah, otherwise they have to explain why A was allowed and B wasn't.
Right, and then things get really sticky and complicated, and like it sucks. Like, don't get me wrong, like it sucks because these are people that are genuinely passionate about these IPs and like they want to expand on the universe and they're excited to do it, and a lot of them are doing it in a genuine way. But Nintendo probably just can't take that risk because they're worried about protecting what they have worked so hard.
So it's like, sorry, but fuck you.
Kind of.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. No, it makes sense. I mean, I don't mean to make
your
it sound
words,
as
not
harsh
mine,
as that, but yeah.
Yeah.
No, fair enough. Okay. Good. Well, the idea is that hopefully, like, even as a fan passion project, the idea is not necessarily to make money. It's more like, here's how much I love this, so I made this for you guys.
Right, yeah.
And if I have friends, maybe they'll play it, or maybe they'll reach some sort of audience, but nobody has to pay any money for it. There's no money making to be had here. But perhaps it portrays one of their IP characters in a way that Nintendo doesn't agree with, therefore, fuck it, shut it down.
Right. And yeah, this is probably not a case about money, right? Because a lot of these fan games that got shut down were offered for free on Game Jolt.
I think most of them, yeah.
Yeah, and so it most likely probably comes down to Nintendo just wanting to keep their IPs like under their control, right? It's the same reason why Apple probably keeps their platforms very locked down. They want to make sure they have like this level of control over the thing they worked so hard to create.
Do we have other? Are you a Nintendo fanboy?
I mean, I have nostalgia tied to Nintendo for sure. Like my first console memories. My first time, like I actually wanted to make games was when I saw Mario Brothers, and I was like, "Holy shit! Like you can do this. You can tell stories in a game and stuff like that." And that really got me really excited about games and the possibility of making games. And I was like 5 or 6 at the time, because prior to that, it was just like Atari 2600. Like,
yeah,
totally abstract. But I have to kind of side with Nintendo on this one, to be honest. Like, Nintendo is only worth, not only, but primarily their worth is through their IP. And so they're protecting themselves, their shareholder value by protecting their IP. I mean, I'm sure Disney would be the same exact way.
And they have been.
And they have been, absolutely. I mean, think how like Nintendo's IPs are so powerful. And if you watch the closing ceremonies in the Rio Olympics, it's like Mario was like a huge deal. He was like the guy who closed out the Olympics. Like, that's some strong IP. Like,
because everybody, like all the 50 million people that are watching that shit know who that is. It's like Joe Camel or Mickey Mouse or anything like that. It's the same value.
And
like,
yeah, and let's face it, their strength is not their console.
And we'll talk about that later.
That's right. Yeah. We're just gonna keep pushing the buck, dude. It's
Evan's officially no longer a guest. He gets it.
He understands.
But yeah, I mean, like I gotta say, I mean, the sweeping legal action is rough, and but I mean, handpicking into
it does feel like scorched earth to a certain degree.
Yeah, but handpicking, like, what's acceptable, what isn't, and you can't.
It's too much of a fine point, and there's obviously, like, when you have that much of a scope over your fan base, like there's too many things that you have to handpick from. So just kill it all, right? Like, ultimately,
and when you're a larger company, it's a lot easier to do things like, say, hire a legal department, set forth some rules, and then just send them out into the wild, which is what everybody does. Like Microsoft,
us paying
Apple,
you on retainer is much cheaper than us actually like filing suit with.
So they just spend pretty much the majority of their time suing people. That not Nintendo specifically, but every major company, every major conglomerate that has stake in their, in protecting themselves.
We have a lawyer position open, by the way, if anybody's listening and needs a lawyer position and wants to be a lawyer for Chico's podcast, because everything we do is copyright protected. So 300, by the way, theme of the episode. Anyway, I is there a way though that, like, are we always going to be in this kind of place? Because we've seen things specific, like you mentioned, Disney, especially when it comes to Star Wars or even Star Trek. Happy 50th anniversary, by the way. Mm-hmm. Star Trek 50th anniversary.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Gene Roddenberry Jr. over here. But we've seen like a bunch of fan films, especially with like the advent of YouTube and all this stuff, like where people come across and are like, we do this because we love it, not because we're trying to make money or anything else. And look, I'm not trying to say it's like a completely noble enterprise. A lot of people go out of their way to exploit the shit out of this. You know what I mean? But Star Wars has kind of had like a back and forth thing with it, especially since Disney's been on board. And if like J.J. Abrams says it's like, oh, you know what, this fan film is okay, we can let that one exist, but not that one. This one's okay, but no, not that one. No. It goes. I feel like this kind of goes back and forth, and even more so for Star Trek, for instance, where like there's been a bunch of cool fan films. They're gonna shut down. More of like a band hammer kind of thing on that stuff. Is there ever a point where this is ever going to go away, where the people are just going to like be allowed to kind of just celebrate the things they want to do? No, business is too big. Huh? No. I'm living in a fantasy world.
Yes.
When all your company value is stored in the IP, like that's, you got to defend. It's the core of your business.
So I can't ever like rock a Galahorn game that's just like, it's Angry Birds but with a Galahorn.
No.
And now I'm offending everybody.
I'm gonna contact Bungie's legal department.
Rovio and Bungie, they're gonna come after me now. Fuck. All right.
I mean, maybe you could come to Bungie and pitch it.
Yeah, I'm sure they would love that.
Okay, so let's just start at. It's like Angry Birds. Get the fuck out. Get the fuck out of here. Who let you in here? They're fired too.
We'd give you a T-shirt on the way out.
It's like I got kicked out of Bungie, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt.
Let's be fair, it'd be a pretty amazing T-shirt.
They are.
When you were bringing up the Star Wars fan films, sorry, before we move on, because it's bothering me. Does anybody know the Star Wars film that was the collection of fan-made clips of single? They were basically they released a big list of very, very, very small scenes from the films, and then they put them out there, and then fans bid on the ones they wanted, and then when they chose them, a group of people would film just that part.
Using like homemade.
So it was like
materials.
Twitch plays Star Wars fan movie.
Kind of.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it was like that, but like some people would put a lot of production value into it, and they'd build sets, and they'd do this. It's like 10 seconds is what they would get.
Kind of great.
Yeah, and some people would do it fully animated or like whatever, and then they just mashed it together into this fucking awesome version of Star Wars.
It sounds amazing.
It's super great to watch because like when it goes from like this really high production value scene and then to like some guy who just made his entire suit out of construction paper.
So when you get a love letter from thousands of people, it's easier from a legal standpoint to get and accept than it is from like 5 guys in a basement.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, how do you shut that one down? Like, how do you shut down the thousands of people making like 2-minute clips?
Pretty easy. You put DMCA, especially on fucking YouTube of all places, where Nintendo, for instance, has no problem being like, "Don't talk about our shit here."
That's true.
I don't know. I think it's an interesting exception. That's what, but you're speaking very specifically to the question I asked, like how certain properties allow certain things as opposed to others, and that's why I don't know. I'm hoping maybe that there's more of like a fan involvement, especially with like the access for fans to just kind of generate content of their own as a love letter specifically, so
I found it. It is called Star Wars Uncut, the fan-made galactic saga. So please look that up if you have time before it disappears off the face of the earth when Disney steps in.
J.J. Abrams hasn't found it yet. Fair enough. Final thoughts, anybody?
It's not black and white. There's lots of shades of gray here, but
how many? About 50.
It's zing.
Evan's never coming back.
Yeah, we exhausted the shit out of this, didn't we? All right. You're right. It's not cut and dry.
I'm just glad I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Unless you're the one doing the suing, not the defending. Then it's fun.
Unless you're getting paid on retainer like $800 an hour, but that's fine.
Who's Scario? Sued.
Sky. What do you mean? Like,
No Mario Sky got
Twario
too, by the way.
What?
Anyone see No Mario Sky? That got shut down.
Oh yeah. Well, no, but it didn't. They just changed the name.
They had to change the name by shut down. Like they couldn't keep it. The thing that made it cool is that it was Mario, but that's fine.
It's still Mario. They just changed the name.
Yeah,
it's all good. Anyway, lightning round, ladies and gentlemen.
Sure.
Yeah, fine.
You're including the listener.
Yes, that's exactly right. It's time for lightning round. Here's how it works. We're going to take 2 quick topics and give each member of the panel a minute to chime in, uninterrupted for the most part, meaning we're not going to talk over each other like we have been for the past 45 minutes.
Try.
At the end of each minute, we will award the panelists a quantity of some type of points based on nothing in particular. Our distinguished guest, in this case, Evan. Sorry, Samir.
You're not sorry.
Will be in charge of awarding me points as the hosts for my respective minutes. The first topic, an arguably unholy union of Apple and Nintendo, was inevitable. But it's finally happening, you guys. We could argue that Pokemon Go was just a first wave. Now we're finally getting Mario on our iPhones in the coming weeks.
It's already out.
I guess, is it?
Yeah.
Fuck. I guess all we had to do was trade in our headphone jacks. Tell me how excited you are to be playing Nintendo's most famous IPs on your mobile devices. Tell me why you wish they had stayed away, maybe. Is this Apple's backdoor push to be more relevant in the gaming industry? I'm interested to know. Does this actually help either one of them? Nintendo, probably yes. So many questions. You have 60 seconds to answer all of them, or none. It's up to you. Mr. Arroyo, show them how it works.
Shit. Well, I love the idea of playing Mario on my phone. Yes. Very much yes. But that being said, it's a little late to the party, but it's probably going to work just fine. Late to the party in the sense that when you have 500,000 fucking games in the market, there are plenty of them that are just straight up Mario clones that have already existed that are probably didn't do very well. But that speaks to the power of the IP that we keep talking about, is that it doesn't fucking matter. There can be games that are playing exactly like Mario on your iPhone right now, and the fact that I can't name a single one explains why that doesn't matter. And now that Mario's going to actually do it, or
me Tomo. Nothing. I'm not interrupting. Go ahead.
Then that's why it's still gonna fucking work, because Nintendo is goddamn magic whenever they release anything with their IP. So do I think it's a good idea? Yes. Is it gonna work for both of them? Absolutely. Of course it will.
I'm going to award you one Nintendo NX with a copy of Mario Temple Run on it.
I don't want it.
Neither does anyone else. Samir, you have 60 seconds. Tell me about how you feel about the whole Apple/Nintendo thing, or how excited you are to not talk about it.
Oh man. Okay, first off, that's a lot to unpack. But generally speaking, it's just gonna work. From like a financial and business standpoint, it's just gonna work. So as far as if it's a good move, it's a bad move, it doesn't matter. It's just gonna work. I mean, you're taking something that's so beloved that like people will flock to it no matter what it is. I mean, like Pokemon Go is a great example, right? As far as like, is this some massive plan by Apple to be relevant in the gaming community? Like, I don't think we should be asking that question anymore. I mean, people play games on their phones all the time, and I feel like at this point to say that mobile gaming is not, quote unquote relevant is actually kind of just misinformed. I play games on my phone all the time. I play games on my PC, my PS4, whatever. This is just Apple kind of cementing it and seeing like, hey, look, we now have like wider reach. If anything, it's less about we're relevant and more about like we're expanding.
I'd like to award you an Xbox One because it seemed like the only platform that you did not mention in your diatribe. I wanted you to just fill out that entire.
Thank you.
I'd also like to throw in one Tim Gunn who says, "Make it work."
Make it work. Well done. Project One Way. Premiering. No, I don't know. I don't.
You know.
No, my wife does though, and I'll watch it too. It's fine. Evan, talk to me.
I'm actually excited that Nintendo's pushing their IP onto other platforms, and particularly onto the iPhone, or to mobile at least. I think it's going to work out great for them. I think it's going to expose a whole new generation to the Nintendo IP, particularly Mario and Zelda and stuff like that. I think the IP's targeted, will admit it, to a younger audience that just doesn't play console games as much anymore. I think, and Nintendo making hardware like the Wii U just doesn't have the same traction with kids between the ages of 8 and 12, and so getting the IP on them just on the iPhone just exposes more people to it, and hopefully this generates enough traction that we'll actually see more Nintendo IP elsewhere, and as well see high quality iPhone games. Like Nintendo, like the one thing they do not slough on is quality, and they make very high quality games. So the biggest thing I'm looking forward to is just the growth of the IP and just high quality games. But I am gonna miss my hardcore like platformer experience.
Oh, it was a perfect minute.
The guests always do better than we do with our own goddamn minutes. Evan, I'm going to award you a Triforce. Just because. Fuck it. Triforce.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
That was the least amount of work anyone's ever had to do for a Triforce.
To essentially complete a game.
One minute worth. I
don't know if it was a good minute. It was a solid minute.
It was.
All right.
No, keep in mind, you have to award him when
Yeah. Here's the thing. I agree with you, Samir, that perhaps asking whether or not Apple is a relevant platform for games is an outdated question. And I agree with everyone else by saying that, like, mobile still matters and Nintendo still matters, and the nostalgia is enough to keep us going and what's going to bring new generations in. However, I still feel like I own some of this. And this is me talking as a gamer, not as a game maker. Like, there's that ownership, right? Like, you love something so much that you can't help but feel like you wanted to do the thing you wanted to do. So I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And I am more excited about the fact that, like, there's going to be a bunch of cool things that come out of this, not the way that they enter it, though. Pokemon Ghoul, whatever. It's a fucking ghost. Nobody's playing it anymore. Whatever.
Good save.
Thanks. I feel like it's an interesting thing. Having a Temple Run Mario is fine. What's going to come later is going to be way more interesting than what it is now. And my minute's up, so I'm going to stop talking.
I would just like to point out that he dedicated his minute to throwing shade at me.
I noticed that. What does he get, Evan? What do you think?
I award Joe 1 Pokeball.
Oh, you can get more than that at a Pokestop.
Maybe. I might get a couple potions. Who knows?
Yeah, and what do you even use those for? Yeah. Who goes to a gym?
I still don't know what the revives do. I'm going to be real.
Like, what? It's not incense? Well, fuck me.
Fuck that.
Right.
What's more fun than a Japanese vending machine? Get your soiled panties, puppies, sushi socks, and more. It's so convenient. You will have 60 seconds to either complain in a rational way why this stuff shouldn't exist, or make up your own insane vending machine and defend your reasoning. Pretty simple, right? Let's find out. Samir.
Why would you make me go first?
Because I really want to hear your answer.
Okay. If I had to invent a vending machine, I'm not going to comment on the current status of vending machines in Japan. It would be one where you can go make your own game. And you would just have to stand in front of it for hours on end, maybe even days, just to make a game. And eventually it comes out and it flops. And then you feel the pain and you understand. But you learn and grow. And then the next time you use the vending machine, you make something better. It'd be a terrible vending machine. No one would use it after the first time. But it would be great. And you'd probably pay with some of your life. And probably your health.
How much money goes into this vending machine?
Oh, man.
Ask your publisher.
Well, the more you put in, the better the game comes out, right? Like, that's how it works.
More money means better game, guys.
yeah.
I don't know. I honestly had nothing for this topic. I just started bullshitting off the top of my head. I know it was impossible to tell.
It was.
The point of this topic is that we've all had enough beers to drink that it shouldn't matter. My award to you, sir, is
a delayed game that just needs a little bit more money to be finished.
Sorry. You're good.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.
So all of my student projects.
Yeah, effectively. I'm gonna go next.
Yeah, all right. Go for it.
The best possible Japanese vending machine that I can think of is the one that fillets and wraps my sushi for me instead of just giving it to me in a prepackaged container. That being said,
Like with arms? Sorry.
I want it to be in VR. So,
Oh, no.
so not only am I seeing it like, a weird kind of angled view, it doesn't, the taste is more real than the view is, and therefore it's kind of like disjointed, kind of like sushi.
Wow.
I'm glad I'm not the only one struggling with this topic. Sushi's Japanese, right? I mean,
Oh my
I'm
god.
good. I'm good, guys. VR sushi, guys, come on, get on board.
Step into the rift.
I don't
Jiro
know.
dreams of Rift.
You got your work cut out for you, Evan, for
He goes last.
Literally
No,
any,
I know,
anything
but,
he can say is going to
he's
be
got
better.
to award you points, though. Buddy.
Yeah.
You don't have to give him shit.
1 dirty panty?
Just one.
It's not even the plural. It's like cut in half. It's like there's like one leg hole
Did you
and some
get?
fringe on it.
Did you get it from a vending machine? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Let me qualify that appropriately.
I say 1 dirty panty worth 1 yen.
It seems really cheap.
I don't want to know.
Dude, that's
Seems
like a
really
penny.
dirty. That seems really dirty and really cheap. Mr. Arroyo,
Yeah.
second to last minute.
Okay.
I want to hear about your amazing Japanese vending machine.
I really, really want a Japanese vending machine that spits out Japanese vending machines. Because I feel like it would be worth your money.
God damn it.
If I can't get that, which I don't imagine I could, it'd be a really big vending machine. I want a vending machine that spits out really shitty, weird ideas, almost in the fashion in which South Park believes that Family Guy episodes are made, with a bunch of manatees in a tank that just take little idea balls and then they just pick them up and just scoot them and spit them out. And now you have, remember that time I drank tequila in Mexico with this, anyway, Anne Hathaway? And they're like, oh, this is a funny segment. But it's not funny. So I want... that's why I want a vending machine that gives me, I guess, shitty jokes at the end of the day.
So you wanted to dispense this podcast.
Only your minute, buddy.
I'm going to award you 2 pairs of boxing gloves, a boxing ring, and Seth MacFarlane.
Wow. Yeah. I like some of his other stuff.
Ted one, maybe not so much too.
Final minute
goes to Evan.
So I read this article. I haven't been to Japan. Vending machine puppies? Oh, let me just sign up for a 12 to 15 year commitment with 100 yen, whatever it is.
like 3 quarters and a Diet Coke.
Like I get the dirty panty stuff. I get some of like maybe the squids and stuff like that. I get it. Like there's but you do it, you get rid of it, you throw it out. But like a dog though. Seriously, you just can't just.
Yes.
Like I just don't understand who's the customer of this.
The dog or the panties?
No, the panties. I get the dog.
Okay.
It would be great if it's like an American vending machine where there's like a puppy hanging because like someone put the money in but it didn't come out all the way. So you're trying to combo it down with another puppy.
Yes.
You're like, I got 2
puppies.
I'm going to award you a vending machine full of trash cans so that you can sort that shit out.
I also get the panty vending machine, so I'm with you, man. Don't even worry about it.
Don't
totally
fucking pretend like you know it. Don't you pretend like you know what the fucking deal is. Nobody gets that shit.
I get it.
Have you been on Craigslist?
Yeah.
No.
Have you seen Orange is the New Black? There's a whole season dedicated to selling dirty panties. Just saying. It's a thing.
Fair enough.
I'm learning so much today.
You and me both, buddy. Oh, God. I hope we've done it. That's enough. Episode 111 is all but over. Evan, thank you, dude. Appreciate it. Pleasure talking with you. Please take this opportunity. Let people know where you're at on Twitter. Pimp, Rise of Iron, Destiny 2 if you want. No pressure. Samir, you do the same. People want to come check you out. Let them know where to do it.
You can follow me on Twitter at Evan Nikolich. I tweet about Destiny, and football season starts tonight.
And Dota.
And Dota. I've been playing a lot of Dota. Badly, but I've been playing. So if you want to teach me how to play Dota better, hit me up on Twitter.
Yeah, people are going to tell you how to play Dota. Trust me. Just saying. People like to comment how well you're doing while you're playing Dota.
I hear a lot of Peruvian people telling me how much I suck at support, but
stick with it.
Learn.
We learn with failure, right, guys? That's the lesson we've learned today.
All I'm gonna say is learn to the last hit, bro. Learn to the last hit.
Just start playing Green Day into your mic. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
There you go. Samir,
Yo, what up?
where can they hit you up?
You can follow me on Twitter at Arukamos, which good luck spelling
Now I
that.
know how to pronounce it.
Yeah,
Never knew.
You can follow me if you want to see me tweet stuff about Destiny and probably way too many pictures of like puppies and stuff. Because
Usually
I find them
corgis.
adorable.
Corgis.
Yeah, corgis and French bulldogs.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
French Bulldogs is my shit.
All right.
Yeah, but Rise of Iron comes out September 20th. Sorry. I had to plug.
Pimp that shit, dude.
$29.99.
Destiny 2 comes out.
Destiny 2. I don't know about that. What did Hirschberg
It
say?
doesn't exist. It doesn't exist, guys. It's not a real thing.
The third.
And thank you, dear listener, and know that we're always curious to to hear what you have to say, what you're thinking. Hit us
very
up.
confident that you want to hear anything.
I do. I just was reading the script wrong. Hit us up at cheatcodespodcast.com. Find us on Facebook. Find us on Twitter, and get in on the conversation. We do want to hear what you have to say. That'll do us for us for now. Make sure to check out the Patreon page. You can become a patron for as little as $2 a month. So if you're into the show, help us out. Thanks to everyone who's jumped on board so far. We'll see you next week. Here we go.
Do it.
Spartans, ready your breakfast and eat hearty, for tonight we dine in hell! We'll see you next week.
Jesus Christ.
That was pretty good.